Happy New Year!
Happy New Year!
Welcome to episode 22.
I just sounded like that. Do you remember that old Frosty the Snowman cartoon where he's like, Happy birthday?
I do know that because there was a time all through undergrad and part of law school where there's a 5-second clip of him saying that on YouTube, and that's what I would post on everybody's wall on their birthday.
Oh, cute. Yeah.
So,
Yeah, that's what I sounded like.
Yeah. Hopefully you enjoyed that nice little intro we had about... I don't even remember what we were talking about now.
Oh, I don't either.
Oh, mannequin legs.
Yeah, at least it wasn't Harvey Weinstein's balls.
Yeah. Hopefully you guys had a spectacular holiday hiatus, I guess.
Yeah.
And enjoyed those Patreon previews.
I'm Garrett.
I'm Katie.
Since we almost forgot. Almost got a little carried away.
I would have gotten there eventually because it's written on the board.
Yeah, we had to give ourselves a written prompt so we don't forget. Not that we've forgotten many times, but there have been a couple times where we just completely forgot to introduce ourselves. So
oopsie doodles.
Whoops. So professional.
Do we have any housekeeping things, Garrett?
I don't think so. I don't think I do. Our merch is still up.
Yep.
Still want to aggressively yet subtly ask people to be Patreon supporters.
Yeah. Patreon, I mean, I know you guys got some, like, quality previews the past couple weeks. But, yeah, it's going off over there. And especially with our Britney Spears theories.
Oh, yeah.
And
that was a spur of the moment.
Yeah, that was super spontaneous.
We were literally we were in the middle of recording. I was like, hey, have you been watching any of this? And then we decided to hold that thought and record it instead.
Yeah, and totally worth it because that was just such a wild rabbit hole to go down, but I'm looking forward to continuing down that rabbit hole as things develop. So,
yeah.
Which will be only on Patreon because we're not that kind of podcast normally.
So sign up.
So if you want the ramblings of...
Because we want to still talk about random things.
Yeah, I think since the last time you guys have heard us, we've hit over 4,000 downloads.
Oh my God.
It's just wild to have hit that in
such a short
months.
Yeah, such a short period of time.
Existing, yeah. It's just amazing, and it's all because of you guys. So every share is amazing. I know that I tell you when you guys message us your nice stories.
Oh my God, that just the two of us every 100% of the time both full about.
Yeah.
We get so excited.
Yeah. I know that I responded to one person that their nice comments were going to make me barf rainbows.
Probably more than one person, let's be honest.
Yes.
Now that you mention it, I may have said that more than once.
Yeah. Oh, I for sure say it. At this point, it's almost like a tagline for me.
Yep.
But yeah, so I guess we can crack into it.
Yeah. Or, I was trying to think of a more accurate analogy for seasonal affective disorder. Maybe just slowly roll into it.
Melt into it.
In a gray blob, just... So today we were talking about seasonal affective disorder, which I am very familiar with personally.
I am familiar with it from an observer's standpoint.
Yes. Katie gets to watch it in real time.
I do. From multiple people, so it's a thing.
Oh, it is. So seasonal affective is a type of depression that's triggered by the change of seasons. The most common is definitely summer to winter. But there are also people who have it from winter to summer.
Oh, wow.
That have the reverse. So obviously summer to winter, those symptoms start appearing, late fall, early winter, and then go away when the sun comes back in spring and summer. And then obviously the reverse, people that have it, it starts in the spring and, lasts until the fall. In either case, whether it's, winter to summer, summer to winter, the symptoms usually start mild and then as the season goes on become more severe and pronounced. And in some cases, the mood changes can be pretty serious, and affect like really even like down to handling everyday activities, which is definitely true for me. I know I tend to, I would say at the very end of the summer, I start getting that when the leaves start changing. I'm like, oh no, it's coming.
You do.
Like I
get
love,
very upset when the leaves start
I
changing.
get so upset. And what's sad is like I love the fall. I love the weather. It's a beautiful time of year. I love all the fall activities and the baking and all of it. Every bit of it. But I spend the entire fall going, oh my God, winter's coming. Oh my God, it's almost winter. Oh my God. Oh my God, we're gonna have no sun soon.
Meanwhile, I'm just over there in the corner playing in the leaves. Like,
Oh my God.
I'm
And
just happy to be here.
it does suck because man, I do love the fall. It's always been like one of my favorite seasons, but all of the enjoyment is sucked out of it.
It's so crazy to me because I love the change in seasons.
Yeah.
And so I like when fall happens, I love it. But also like when fall happens, I look so forward to winter happening. Like I
Uh-huh. Yep. What's that like?
Garrett's gonna call the police on me.
Straight to jail. You said you look forward to winter, straight to jail. And it's wild because I don't dislike cold weather. I don't dislike snow. I don't dislike the holidays. I'm like, ooh, being like snuggly, especially like on a weekend, like just,
Totally.
staying in comfy clothes and watching movies and stuff. I enjoy that. It's just the lack of sunlight. It totally comes down to like lack of sunlight for me. And I think also the gray. The gray gets to me.
The gray can be kind of a see, for me, the gray, like, so we just had the snowstorm when we're recording this, and I was at work when it was storming, and so it was gray, and you look out the window, and the windows are already tinted anyway because they're like those semi-privacy windows that they have on all office buildings, but so it was kind of that thing where I was like, mostly I was looking at the window saying, man, I wish I was home, like, snuggling with PK.
It was so nice. Speaking as somebody who used a personal day, it was so nice to be home. And
I know,
outside
because
and
you
being
were
like,
not texting me back, and I was like,
No.
oh, she's just reveling.
She is half asleep. I'll tell you what I did. I binged the entire. I watched the. This is embarrassing to say. I watched the whole motherfucking season of Handmaid's Tale,
Ooh,
beginning to end.
What'd you think?
It was like 10 hours of TV. I never do that. Normally it's like a couple hours. I'm like, okay, that's
Right,
enough.
but what did you think of Handmaid's Tale?
It was good. It was good. There's always good twists, but it's just a lot. It's just a heavy show.
I'm surprised that you.
I put it
did
off
that.
for a really long time.
I'm surprised that because, like you've said, like it's a heavy show. I can only
It
do it in
is.
small doses.
Yes.
So that you did it all in one dose.
I watched the first few
in the middle of a storm.
in the middle of the winter, and then I was like, you know what? At this point, I just want to find out what's going to happen. It was like ripping off a Band-Aid, and then it got to the point where I thought I hit the finale, and I was like, well, I'm done. And I looked and I was like, no, there are 2 more fucking episodes. Well, buckle in and finish them. So it was almost like revenge
And then
watching.
you got up from your couch, and there was like a Garrett imprint.
Yeah, there was like it looked like I made a snow angel, but on my couch it was like an imprint of me. Yeah, it was good, but it was definitely heavy viewing. But I'm good for right now. Like I can feel it setting in, but when we hit like post holiday slump where it's just gray and there's a bunch of storms and it's just that drag until the clocks change.
Yeah, I think it would be easier to deal with the seasons changing if the part of the world we lived in had weather that corresponded exactly with what the sun was doing. Mm-hmm. And I do find it irritating that like we're recording this in December, like the days will start getting longer again, like basically tomorrow, but the weather gets so much worse for like 2 more months for us, like, and it gets so icy, And like that makes it hard
Yep.
for me because then I feel like I can't get out of my apartment
Yep.
unless I'm going to work, and I can't go for a walk because I have to be in heavy winter boots, and it's not like
Awful.
those aren't like exercise shoes. Those aren't shoes that I can do like a long walk in.
Right, they're not comfortable.
Right. So it's that's more like what I struggle
Mm-hmm.
with, because then you also end up, at least where I live, there's like questionably devoted salting of the sidewalks. So
Or even like plowing of the sidewalks.
right. So
Yeah.
like sometimes it'll be done and it's great and you can go for a walk safely, but then other times it's like you're taking your life in your own hands.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
So that's oftentimes what I struggle with more, is just getting in that activity, because although I change my work schedule, so it is a little bit easier to do that
Yes, when you're
now
not
that
getting out.
yeah,
much
getting
later.
home in daylight.
Yeah.
Is nice.
Yeah, that does make a big difference. And I think ultimately, like, mine really is time change to time change.
Yeah.
Like, it really, like, settles in and gets comfy when the clocks change in November, and really starts to lift a little bit when they change again in March. So Congress, get your shit together
Seriously.
and get rid of daylight savings. It's
I mean,
the bane of my existence.
It should pass the House no problem. Like,
Yeah. Just do it.
it was a Republican-sponsored bill to start with. I don't understand why the House isn't just like,
Do it.
yeah, like instant win, guys.
Yeah.
Everybody will be happy about it.
Everyone will love it. Myself especially. And considering about 5% of adults in the U.S. experience seasonal affective.
Wow.
Yeah. Like 10 to 20% of people sometimes will get what they describe as like the winter blues, like a more mild form. 5% do have seasonal affective. And it tends to start in like young adulthood, like between the ages of like 18 and 30, which I would say is probably when I started noticing. It was like in my later 20s.
Yeah, because we stopped getting those winter breaks that we got all through grade school. We had like 2 weeks off for Christmas and New Year's, and then a week off in February.
Yeah.
And then a week off whenever Easter was. So.
And like a legitimate break around Thanksgiving. Mm-hmm. Yeah, now that you say that, I remember one year in college, the way like the holidays landed, we got a full month in between winter and spring, or fall and spring semesters, and it was a dream. It was so nice.
Yeah, so you just
That's a good
need to take
point.
more time off at this time of year, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. Goddamn. That didn't even occur to me until you said that. I was like, what? And seasonal affective disorder also affects more women than men, but they don't know why.
Of course.
Right.
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah, just lay it on me. Cool.
Hit me. Just kidding, because it will. It's going to hit me like a ton of bricks.
Please don't hit me. I'm delicate.
I can't handle it. It's just too much.
I'm a baby.
Said it did. My spouse the other day. There was something that had to be done. I was like, I can't do it. I'm just a baby. And I was on the couch, like, wrapped up in a blanket. You couldn't possibly ask me. Cut to, 2 weeks later when I'm trying to do something by myself and I'm offered help and I yell that I don't need help and I can do it myself.
Also a baby move, frankly.
That's a good point. Symptoms of seasonal affective. Whew. Feeling listless, sad, or down most of the day, nearly every day.
So it's that painting of like the sick woman in the bed.
Yeah, just like laying there, like staring at the ceiling.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everything gray. Losing interest in activities you once enjoyed. Low energy. Feeling sluggish. Sleeping too much. Craving carbohydrates or overeating.
Well, that's offensive.
And weight gain. Yep. Difficulty concentrating.
I'm gonna have to fight with Harvard again. I'm a black belt. I'll kick you. Harvard.
The fact that the episode was named Eat Dick Harvard is just... Well, that was a tangent that we went down. Difficulty concentrating.
Huh.
Weird. Feeling hopeless, worthless, or guilty. And obviously, it gets real dark and there's thoughts of not wanting to live. I would not say mine ever gets that bad, but definitely. Actually, I would say I just tend to be irritable all the time. I'm just like kind of always
Just
cranky.
like on the edge of
Yeah.
I think that it pairs so well with our burnout episode though,
Yes.
because it's like that same thing. Like you're just on this like hairpin trigger of
Yes.
like the littlest thing is just going to send me into like rage or a crying fit or whatever. Like when
Yes.
you're having a bad day and then you stub your toe and you just
Oh.
like lose it
Or
for
like when your pocket catch or your belt loop catches on a drawer. Oh my God. Or you trip over a shoe. It's like one of those things. It's immediate rage.
I did that last night because there's shoes all over my living room.
Oh my
because I
God.
need to take out my recycling. Yeah, there's a lot. I have to organize my life this weekend.
Yes.
Anyway.
Also, same. Yeah, I usually will compare it to like a rattlesnake. Like my tail's always like warning people, like, please just don't. Whatever it is, don't. I also get very easily overwhelmed. So it's almost like I'm just running at like a higher frequency, but it's a grumpy frequency. So it just takes very little to make my already bad mood worse in the wintertime. I noticed it setting in this year when it was like a Saturday morning and I woke up and I was I was miserable. I was like, it is a Saturday morning. Like what am I doing that I am feeling this mad and upset on a day off?
Right, yeah.
And with the fall and winter seasonal affective, there's also, I know they said like sleeping too much, like oversleeping is very common. Whereas spring and summer seasonal affective, you tend to have like insomnia, trouble sleeping, poor appetite, weight loss. Instead of weight loss, they're talking about like weight gain. Nope.
Other way.
Opposite. Instead of weight gain, they're talking about weight loss, agitation or anxiety, also irritability. So it seems to be like instead of being in more of like a depressed hibernation mode, you're like more keyed up.
Yeah, like strung out irritability, which is interesting because it's also like that thing, like, because I was thinking like, man, I wish I had like summer seasonal affective. I could like lose some weight, like get more done around the house because I'm not sleeping. But then I'm thinking like, well, no, I'd be a cranky old bitch because I'm not eating. So then I would be like, and then that would also send my brain into like a fight or flight response because it's not getting those basic necessities, which is what we talk about with like hyperfixation,
Making
and
you
burnout,
edgy.
and yeah.
Right. So yeah, it I would say that I definitely I always kind of deny it's happening. I'm like, no, I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm fine. And then I find myself on a Saturday morning raging for no reason.
Yeah.
Being miserable.
Other people I know who have seasonal depression also deny that it's happening, and then like I kind of have to like get in their face and be like, you should not be sleeping this much. Like this is actually a problem. Like let's take steps to.
I did start. So I started taking vitamin D towards the beginning of fall, and that was taking the edge off for a little bit. I think that was helping offset a little bit. And was using the light and going to therapy, and that was not enough. So causes and risk factors. So there's a few different things at play. There are things that increase your likelihood of having seasonal affective. So family history, having people who have seasonal affective in your family or some other kind of depression.
Okay.
Having another pre-existing condition like a major depression, bipolar, schizophrenia, those other mental health, having anxiety issues can make you more susceptible to having seasonal affective also.
Does ADHD make you more?
Yes, that was one of the ones that they listed. Excuse me.
Well, shit.
God damn it. I had it specifically written down somewhere, and I'm not seeing it in my notes. Living farther from the equator, whether you're far north, far south, That can also make you more likely because you do get just those vastly different amounts
Totally.
of sunlight depending on the season. They're also saying low vitamin D, but vitamin D is going to come up a bunch. So they don't 100% know what the cause is, but there's a lot of theories regarding serotonin and melatonin. So one thought is that seasonal affective is kind of triggered by a change to circadian rhythm. So say, you have these reduced levels of sunlight in the fall and winter, that can then disrupt your body's internal clock,
Right.
which we talked about in the sleep episode, which then can like trigger those feelings of depression, like when your internal clock is thrown off.
Yeah.
I think that was one of the like longer term sleep deprivation symptoms was depressive symptoms. So with your serotonin, so there's two kind of thoughts on this. One is that you have reduced sunlight that can trigger a drop in serotonin that can trigger depression. There's another thought that maybe people with seasonal affective have reduced activity in their serotonin like transmitters. And then when you have that change in sunlight, that is just going to then trigger that to be even worse and really offset that already reduced activity.
Okay.
It like kicks it into high gear
Right.
when you're going into the winter time.
Yeah.
And then, when you don't have this like well functioning regulation anyway, the decreased levels are just going to make it that much worse.
Right.
Same thing with melatonin. So there are some studies that suggest, or findings that suggest, that people with seasonal affective overproduce melatonin, which is then going to create a situation where you're very sleepy, oversleeping.
Like you overproduce it in general or just when you're not getting enough sunlight?
It didn't clarify, but I'm thinking it's got to be like maybe your production is a little wonky anyway.
Right.
Which I mean kind of does make sense, if you have maybe pre-existing mental health conditions. I feel like there is that relationship between, sleep and mental health that's, I mean, ADHD alone, we know, like, obviously ADHD, anxiety, depression, those, like, three major ones, definitely are going to contribute to sleep disturbances. Sleeping too much,
Right.
trouble sleeping, waking up a bunch. So I think probably ultimately it's like a chicken and egg situation.
The chicken eats the egg. Got
Yep,
it.
every time. So obviously when you have those changes to serotonin and melatonin, that's going to interrupt like your daily rhythm. So you're just going to have a really hard time with seasonal changes when vitamin D, which is like so tied up in both of those, you figure the sunlight and the melatonin, like the amount of sunlight that you're getting is going to help keep your melatonin and your circadian rhythm on track.
Right.
So when there's a change to that, especially when you have a time change where there's a drastic like shift in the amount of sunlight, that's going to impact your body's ability to like regulate that melatonin release so that you're going to sleep and waking up when you're supposed to. And then the same thing with serotonin, like you have the vitamin D, which is going to help feed that serotonin. And when you're not getting the vitamin D from the sunlight, that's going to disrupt that as well. So it just really, like, I know for me, it's like, not to be dramatic, but like falling off a cliff. That's all.
Not to be dramatic, but I might just yeet myself into the sun.
That's all. That's all it is. So treatments, ways to cope with the horrific experience that is seasonal affective. Number one would be seeing your healthcare provider. If you are in a situation where your sleep patterns are being affected, your appetite, you're looking to alcohol or the like for comfort or relaxation, you're having feelings about hopelessness and not wanting to be around, first things first is talking to some kind of, healthcare provider or mental health professional or crisis professional.
And in the U.S., you can call 988 at any time.
That's right. That's new.
A mental health crisis and into having thoughts of hurting yourself. So do that, please, if you're in the U.S.
I forgot because that just started like in the last like 6 months, right?
No, it's been out, I think, over a year. I think. I don't know. But either way, that's the number.
But it's fairly new, and I'm actually surprised it hasn't come up before. I'm surprised we haven't mentioned it.
No, we haven't. But
at any point.
We haven't, I think this is really the first time that we've
talked about
really
like depression-y
yeah.
things, yeah. So there's a lot of circumstantial things that you can do to help yourself. So light therapy is one of the big things that they mention. And for a lot of people, this is enough to keep the difficulties at bay a little bit. So they recommend that you sit in front of a light box, which you can buy. They're described as like seasonal affective lights.
Yeah.
And to be honest, even if you didn't have seasonal affective, it would probably still be helpful.
For sure.
To sit.
Yeah. Even if it's just for the...
I am a doctor of words.
It's just to turn your brain on, evidently. But like, yeah, if you're not really struggling with seasonal affective, I do find that basically having every light on in my apartment like keeps me moving in the evenings because in the summer the sun doesn't go down until like 9 p.m. So to be constantly doing like those little chores and like keeping up with things is a lot easier.
Well, that's true. Yeah.
So in the winter, I kind of have to leave all of the lights on in my apartment to not just melt into my couch. Yeah. Because once it gets dark in the summer, it's like, okay, now it's time to settle down.
Because it really is like 8 or 9 o'clock at night. Right. So it is reasonable to be.
Correct. So in order to not do that at 5 o'clock.
Yeah, because this time of year, sometimes I'm like, okay, like I've made dinner, we've cleaned up from dinner, and I'm like, oh my God, it's got to be time for bed. And I'm like, no, it is 6:45.
Yes.
It's not time for bed. It is early.
And I've thought several times in the past week, like, God, I've got to eat something. It's going to get too late. And it's like 6. And I'm like, oh, well.
Whoops.
I guess I've got time.
I guess I have like really all the time in the world. Not that I have the motivation to do any of it because it's dark and cold.
Right. So then I turn on all my lights because I've been hanging out. Because again, I get home at 4. So like, even if I like sit down on the couch and like unwind for a minute and just decompress from the day, then the sun goes down by 5 p.m.
Ooh, and at the latest.
But like, again, it's the same thing. I mean, I don't only have so many windows in my apartment anyway, but like, it's so gradual and then sudden.
Yes.
Like,
you're like, ooh, is the sun going down? Dark.
Yes. Yeah, it's like the world is on a dimmer switch, and then you get like to the last 30% and they just turn it off completely.
Yeah. It's and the light therapy, and we kind of talked about this with like the sleep episode.
Yes.
So when Harvard was talking about not using electronics around bedtime, they're discussing that intense, that like what's the word I'm looking for? Like frequency, not light frequency.
Well, I thought it was like blue light that comes from electronics, and they said that like by using like basically the way you're using electronics is like cognitively stimulating your brain as opposed to just like
it's that, and also that light is then tricking your brain into thinking it's time to get up.
Right.
So your brain's like, oh, bright light, it's morning time.
Yeah.
Because that's natural. That's what makes sense. So the light therapy, like even if you're not struggling with seasonal affective, that kind of bright light in the morning can help your brain kind of activate and wake up. And I just find myself, did you ever watch Broad City, that show on?
Really only like a little bit here and there.
So there was a character who had really bad seasonal affective disorder, and there was an episode where she was like having a really hard time, and her friend was like, why don't you just go to your doctor and adjust your meds? And she was like, no, I got it. And it started like sitting in front of her seasonal affective light for like longer and longer periods of time. And then by the end of the episode, she had put all of these fluorescent lights in like a closet and lined the closet with foil and was just like reflecting as much light as she could. So I'll find myself like, I won't even use the timer on the seasonal affective light. I'm sitting in front of it for like 2 hours. Like, please, for the love of God, make me feel alive.
I thought you said, please feel the love of God. Mm-hmm. And I was like, Different lamp, I think.
Different type of lamp. Not the same kind. They do recommend that you sit in front of one of those lights for 30 to 45 minutes, usually first thing in the morning, fall to spring. The light boxes are usually 20 times lighter than most ordinary indoor lights.
Oh, wow.
But they also, which I did not know, is they filter out potentially damaging UV.
Oh.
Which I didn't know. Because the whole time...
So regular house lights have damaging...
I don't think so. I think they're clarifying the difference between... Because tanning beds come up a lot.
Oh.
And I know, like, I personally have gone into a tanning bed for, like, 10 minutes in February just to feel like it's summer for 10 whole minutes. Obviously, they say not to do that in place of light therapy.
Yes, that
because those do have UVs.
Dangerous.
I also, I guess, so I've only done tanning bed like a handful of times in my life. And I'm usually pretty good about like staying out of the sun, wearing sun protection. When I go in a tanning bed, I have this really intrusive thought. So they like creak.
Christ, yes.
You know, when you get in them.
Oh, isn't this in like Final Destination?
Oh, I don't know. Did the glass break and somebody fell onto the bulbs? Because that's what I think about.
Jesus, no. I don't know that, but I think they got like locked in it, like it wouldn't open.
Oh, that's awful.
And so then they cooked.
Oh, no, that's not mine. Mine is that the thing is going to break and I'm going to fall onto the bulbs.
It also happened in True Blood. They killed a vampire by
putting him in a
tanning bed.
Oh, I don't remember that one.
I'm pretty sure, unless I'm high.
Maybe.
I don't know.
So yeah, don't swap a tanning bed for your little light box.
Yeah, just use the skin safe light box.
Yes, that doesn't have UVs in it.
Yeah.
And I also am like a house cat, so when it hits this time of year, when I can find a wedge of sunlight in my house, I am laying in it. Literally, I will like move my chair to sit in it, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's it.
I did that as a kid.
That's the stuff.
Yeah.
My
childhood bedroom was south facing, so
oh.
the sun. And yeah, I would do that. It was probably around like February.
Yeah.
It was just so nice. And I'd lay there with my dog and my cat.
Oh yeah. Like when you hit the time in the spring, and it's funny because like in the spring and summer, there's times where I'll stand in the sun where it's not super hot, but the sun just feels so good on your skin. And I think to myself, like, I'm just going to bottle this feeling up. And then when I feel really sad in the wintertime, I'm just going to like take this like a little pill.
Yeah, I remember last spring because in New York, we get this cool thing called fake spring.
Yep.
For like
full spring.
Yeah, 2 days or so in March, it'll be like suddenly 60 or 70 degrees and sunny. God. So like there'll still be snow everywhere.
And it's horrific outside, but the sun's out and it's warm.
The sun is out and it's warm, so you can actually like go for a walk without your coat on or like your coat unzipped or whatever. And this past spring, Garrett texted me and was like, I just want to be a lizard and lay on a rock. She either gets that or then she gets the text when we start hitting like more substantial spring in like late March, early April. And I 100% of the time, every single spring, I text her and I'm like, I just want to get naked and roll around in the mud. Mm-hmm. That's the other text that she gets. So it's those two. And I have to talk her off the ledge because we work in a city, and if she did that, she would get stabbed with hypodermic needles, probably.
Yes, probably. Yeah. But yeah, the difference, I just never used to realize. I'm so much more conscious of it, I think, now, the difference that the sun makes. And how good it feels when you haven't had the exposure to it in so long.
Well, and it's like that reel that I posted where it's like, you know, like the worst thing about going for a walk for my mental health is that it fucking works. Like, it's true, though. Like, just be, like, the fresh air, for me, it's just the fresh air. Mm-hmm. I don't mind if it's, like, if I'm going for a walk in the dark or whatever, because, like, when we had a dog when I was a kid, we'd walk her when we got home and it was dark out. That doesn't bother me, but getting that fresh air is really just so important. Like,
super effective.
In the spring, that is the thing that I notice, and I kind of get, like, cabin fever in, like, February and March because all I want to do is fling my windows open and get fresh air.
Oh, that too, like getting fresh air in the house.
Yeah, I do love that feeling.
Yeah, after, like, the stuffiness of winter.
Sleeping with my windows open when it's warm enough and also cool enough to do that.
Yes. Where you're not like, am I going to freeze my toes off tonight? Yeah.
Worth it.
Do you remember the movie Thumbelina?
Of course.
So seasonal affective always makes me think about when she was married to the mole and she was living underground and it was the wintertime.
Mm-hmm.
And she was super sad and upset because she lived with this mole. And then the sun comes out and it starts melting everything and she comes out of the
And
ground.
Barry Manilow was like, "Let me be your wings. Let me be your
That was a Barry Manilow
only
song?
love." Yeah, he did all the songs for that movie.
And now that you said that, now I'm like, oh my God, I want to watch that movie. I haven't seen that movie in so
I
long.
watched it.
Wasn't Charo was the frog too, right?
Yes.
Man, that was a good movie. Yeah, I do kind of want to watch that now. That was the only time I remember in a movie watching a wedding and being like, oh, that's what I want my wedding to be like. And
That
it was
was
some
cool.
like gardeny little church. It was very cute.
I also feel like that was a great, like, Prince Charming example.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he actually took steps to, like, rescue her, not just,
Right.
like,
Show up.
existing.
Yeah. Just
I'm gonna
being
make out
something.
with this corpse bride.
I love that that's where you went with the
Well,
corpse bride.
yeah, because in Snow White, the prince doesn't even have a name. I think they, like, gave him a name later on, but his name, like, is Prince Charming. Like, the end.
So cognitive behavioral therapy can also help with seasonal affective, as does watching Disney movies. I actually remember during the 2020, when we were waiting for the election results in 2020, which was just,
Oh,
what was the one with Lindsay Lohan where they were the twins and they're separated? What is that?
Parent Trap?
Yeah. Watching The Parent Trap with a weighted blanket wrapped around me. To soothe me. So Disney movies,
you were like, I didn't know she was a twin.
when was there two of them?
Yeah, I remember when that election happened, my screen report from my phone was like, you're on your phone 50% more this past week for an average of 16 blah 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 hours. And I was like, fuck you.
Who
Apple.
asked you,
Like,
Apple?
goddamn. Like, yeah, it's important. I was constantly refreshing CNN.
Me and Steve Kornacki are doing God's work.
Duh.
Apple. Cognitive behavioral therapy for seasonal affective disorder. One of the techniques that they use is called behavioral activation. So it helps you.
Like the Manchurian Candidate?
Yeah, it's exactly like that. This is put that thing back where it came from, or so help me.
Happy New Year!
It was described as helping people identify and schedule like the things that make you happy. So indoor and outdoor activities, like the things that bring you joy, scheduling those and planning them out and doing them to kind of offset the depressive symptoms, to kind of like help you pull yourself out of it. And I think just in general, like cognitive behavioral therapy is, I mean, obviously we talk about that a lot. Like it's good to do on a fairly regular basis.
For sure.
And I think talking through it, it does make me more aware of like, oh, because I use that analogy a lot in therapy. Like when, you know, my anxiety is really high or when I'm feeling really overwhelmed, that rattlesnake analogy comes up a lot because I'm like, oh, I can feel, then I get like, not lashing out, but I get like short with people. So that like rattlesnake feeling, when I start mentioning that, I'm like, oh, I see it now.
Yeah. And I think
I see what's happening.
It's really just having that third party.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like, I guess I'm sure that therapists take their fair share of abuse from their clients sometimes, but I'm certainly not going to, like, tell my therapist, like, well, the reason you're wrong is da-da-da-da. Like, whereas I would, for sure, like, I could see a miscommunication with Patrick and I escalating into going to bed cranky.
Yep. Speaking from experience, it happens sometimes. Vitamin D, obviously there's like mixed research, but it can definitely help boost your mood, I think, when you're kind of in the thick of it. Um, and SSRIs. So going on to like an antidepressant, I will say I am no longer raw dogging it.
Proud of you.
I finally contacted my provider and was like, so sitting in front of my seasonal effective light for 24 hours a day isn't helping. And I'm doing therapy and I'm taking the vitamin D supplement and I need something to take the edge off. And started on Zoloft. And SSRIs are especially helpful because, as we were talking about, that serotonin imbalance, that's going to help like even that out. And wow, what a difference.
Yeah.
Huge difference.
I know that I told you this earlier, but like when I went on my anti-anxiety medication several years ago, it was like it was like somebody finally turned on the light and I hadn't realized that I was bumbling around in a dark room until that happened. Because like the sun going down, it happens so gradually.
Yes.
That you can adjust, and then so to even have the wherewithal to say like, this fucking sucks. Like I'm gonna ask for help. Maybe the answer is no, but at least I can say that I asked.
Right.
Is such an accomplishment. So I'm proud of you.
Oh, thank you so much.
For help,
thank you so much.
It's hard to see that you're not. It's hard to be able to identify that you're in it when you're in it.
Yeah, and I mean, I think I realized when I was trying to explain why I felt so upset and overwhelmed and miserable and just trying to explain it, I started to cry. And like, I'm not a weepy, I mean, like stuff obviously makes me cry sometimes, like when I move to tears, but I'm not like a weepy person by nature. So for me to like not even be able to explain why I was upset without just like sobbing, I was like, this fucking sucks. Like, why am I doing this?
For sure.
And I would say like, I don't know, 3 or 4 days later after taking it, I was like, whoa, oh my gosh, I am so much more even. Like, I'm not crying over everything. I don't feel like I'm drowning. Like, my mood was just like so much more stable. I'm not having times where I'm just like, I don't have that thing where I'm waking up on a Saturday morning and I'm just pissy.
Yeah.
And that's not to say that like, I'm not ever in a bad mood. It's not like it's a fix-all for mood forever.
Right.
But I'm not having those like drastic drop-offs where I'm just having like bad days like multiple days a week.
Right. Yeah, it gives you the space
to
take a deep breath.
Yes.
So that you can assess.
Yes. I will say I'm incapable of crying right now. So I think I'm invincible.
Well, joke's on everybody else. You are invincible.
Just try, but don't really try me because still be nice to me. I'm only kidding.
Yeah, she's just more willing to use her knives. No.
Or my knives aren't as sharp because I'm not.
Maybe that's
pissy.
it. You just got butter knives.
Plastic butter knives instead of like ninja stars that were in my pocket before. So yeah, as much as I was like really opposed to being on medication, I'm like, I just feel like I can get like a deep breath now. And man, it makes this time of year like so much more. And I'm also not going through those like anxiety spirals where like it starts as one thing. I saw this clip of, I mean, it was like, supposed to be like a funny take on like an anxiety spiral, but like it starts with I'm out of milk, and then it's like I didn't go to the grocery store, I'm a fucking idiot, I'm broke, I don't have money, milk is expensive, da da da, and then it just like devolved into I'm the worst.
Yep.
And I was like, oh shit.
Yeah.
And that has not,
that's me.
Yeah, that has not been happening. Like I'm
Good.
just, everything is just more, I'm just not like panicking about anything. Like I'm not losing sleep over stuff like that. It's just very much an attitude of like, all right, well, I'll get to it when I get to it and I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Which is, wow, what
And I think there's
lifesaver.
something to be said for like you going on medication for a season. And you don't have like, you're not with any medication. You're not necessarily committing to going on it forever. And even if you're already on medication, maybe you just need to increase your dose a little bit this time of year. to help you get over that hump and manage your symptoms. And that's okay, because the whole point of SSRIs is that it's adjusting the chemical imbalance in your brain. And if your status quo of what you have during, 9 months of the year is one thing, and that's what your medications are normally managing very well, but those 3 months when it's really dark out and really miserable weather and you can't get outside, the to have a little bit of an extra boost there by way of increasing your medication dosage isn't a judgment on you as a person.
Yes.
And it's easy to hit that anxiety spiral and think, well, I'm just horrible because my meds aren't working.
All of these other people can manage this, and I can't manage this.
If my meds aren't working, it's my fault, not like just that your meds just aren't working, and that's
right.
It just is what it is. Like it's very it's easy, because I've done that before too. Like, it's easy to be like, well, I'm just a loser, so there's no point in calling my doctor or sending them a message on the patient portal.
They're not going to be able to fix this.
Right, like, whatever. Like, I'm already on medication, so, like, what difference does it make? Like, well, first of all, you don't have to be on a higher dose forever. But also, it does make a difference. And if you don't have, like, you don't get an award for making yourself suffer.
100%. And I think also approaching it, I think when I thought about it from, like, you don't feel like this all the time.
Yeah.
You feel like this part of the year, and there's like a very clear correlation between, and not that there's anything wrong with, obviously having depressive symptoms all the time. Like, that sometimes that happens. But I think it just became so, going into it with the awareness that I know it's a hard time, it just was so much more stark to me this year that I was like, wow, you know what? I'm not doing that again. Because that sucked. And I think it also was painfully clear because it was so, I mean, they say like 2 to 4 weeks for feeling the effects of like an SSRI.
Okay.
Feeling it in like a few days to me was like, this is very clearly an imbalance. Like, you very clearly had a chemical imbalance going on, which like we've talked about with the ADHD stuff, when you're breaking it down to like a brain chemistry thing, it takes so much of that stigma away, because you're like, no, this is not controllable. Like, there's something that happens to my brain when the seasons change, and it's not my fault, and I just need to do something to help myself.
Exactly.
And unpacking it a little bit, as opposed to me being like, you can't manage your own brain without medication.
Not because you had an extra slice of bread yesterday, or whatever.
Which the seasonal depression is making you crave.
Yeah, Jesus.
And the ADHD is making you crave.
Yes.
So yeah, it's just, I think ultimately, like, doing a lot of this research has been very helpful to us, like, on a personal level, because
I agree. I was just thinking that, like, I'm going into this winter with, even with my interpersonal relationships, having unpacked all this the past 22 episodes.
Oh my God, 22 episodes.
Has made me so much better at just dealing with the people in my life, even if they're struggling with something, so that I can at least, even though I might also struggle with the same things, it has given me the opportunity to have more of a knowledge base to meet those conversations from a place of knowing and understanding, and also to, handle myself with a little bit more understanding. That, for example, on my way here, I took out some of my recycling. I didn't take out all of it, but I took out some of it.
And that's still good.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it was that thing of like, okay, well, I don't have to get everything done right in order to be able to do it.
I normally, before you come over, I'm like, I'll tidy the house, like wipe the bathroom down and stuff. And this morning I was like, I'm really tired and I can't get to it. Katie's not going to think I'm a piece of shit because I couldn't clean my bathroom before
she's got cats.
And you know what? I think, like, if we weren't doing this podcast, I probably would not have gone on to Zoloft for seasonal depression. So I think ultimately it was really good, because I'm like, I don't have to feel this way. And it's not like it eliminates anxiety or it eliminates all of the seasonal depression symptoms, but man, like, everything's more manageable. Like, life is more manageable. Challenges are more manageable, like
It's a tool.
changes. It's totally a tool.
Yeah.
And that's definitely the way to think of it. Like, I'm just adding to the things that I have in my toolbox. Could I be better about going outside right now? Yes, I could. Am I also a chilly little baby in the house? Yes.
And a baby.
I couldn't possibly go out in the cold in my parka and like 10 layers of clothes. But I think one of the biggest things, and something that came up a lot in doing this research, was like being aware of the symptoms, being aware of what happens, and staying ahead of it so that you can start your treatment plan early and like be prepared for what you know is inevitable and going to happen. Because who wants to spend like the holiday season feeling like a rattlesnake that's just fucking grumpy and yelling at everybody?
Not me, probably.
Not me.
Yeah.
No. And actually another good like way to tie this in, that rattlesnake feeling. My the day before Thanksgiving, when I do really the vast majority of my cooking, my oven died.
Oh, yeah.
And I cried. This is pre-medication. Cried several times. Just trying to figure out like how I was gonna like rework this whole plan that I really am at the point where I don't need to do that much planning because I've done it so many times.
Remember, listener, we've talked about Garrett's spreadsheet with the time stamps of when everything needs to be done and put in the oven and taken out of the oven.
Taken out of the freezer.
Imagine when 50% of her oven broke.
I'm going to say 75% of the oven broke because that's the full size. We have like a double one and we have a little baby oven and then like a full size oven, and the full size one broke, so we only had a little baby oven and a stove. And I cried multiple times and yelled at my mom and then immediately apologized. Literally, as I was doing it, she was like, "Okay, it's okay." I'm like, "I'm sorry. I just can't handle any other changes." So the difference between that and me being like, "Oh, that's okay. I'll figure that out. I'm not worried about it." Wow, like
totally
total 180. So the moral of the story.
Now you can use your to-do list as a to-do list.
Right.
And not as a
micromanaging my time
motivation list or whatever.
Yes. I mean, wow. Whew. Nice deep breath.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's
Good job, Garrett.
Thank you. Thank you. No longer raw dogging it, but that's okay. So that was seasonal affective disorder.
So, yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed the Disney tangents, but just a reminder, PSA, if you're in the US, you can call or text 988 24 hours a day for the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. You can also go to their website at 988lifeline.org. And if you're in the UK, I know we have a ton of listeners over there. You can text SHOUT, SHOUT, to 85258, 24 hours a day. And your nhs.uk website has a lot of resources based on your age, if you want to check those out or if you need to as well. So take care of yourself. If you're feeling iffy, better safe than sorry. Just, shoot a text and talk with somebody who can, help you out and help you process what you're feeling and thinking so that you can stick around and keep listening, because we love having you here. And I bet your family and friends love having you too.
And there's no shame. And I mean, sometimes life's hard and things get you down. And I never thought of myself as somebody who had depression ever. So I think even for me, just acknowledging that it was sometimes a problem for me was like big.
Totally. And it's just, those are another tool. And even if it's, you can't get in with a therapist right away.
Which is super common because the demand is so high right now because a lot of people are having a hard time. So it's not unique. And not that it's not important, but you're not alone and that there's so many people having a hard time with this right now.
So even if you need to check in and say, hey, do you think these thoughts are normal? Do you think I should talk to my doctor about a medication? Or, talk to my doctor about getting a referral to therapy or something. Talk through those things, and they'll have a lot more resources that are local to you that they can give you.
Yes.
And they're all trained. They're not,
Joe Schmo.
people like us just saying stuff.
Picking up the hotline, put that thing back where it came from. Katie singing Beauty and the Beast. I'm like, this is not what I'm looking for. This is not the kind of help I asked for. You wanted me to ask for help, and this is unhelpful.
You ladies are doing your best, but not helping.
Missing the mark.
Oh, well.
I tried.
So yeah, that'll do it for us.
Yeah.
I think we'll be here next week with a regular episode again.
Yeah.
And we've got some really exciting stuff coming up this year with...
We do. Oh my God, this year. Starting a new year. That's
very, very exciting. And we are super pumped to have you guys with us.
And as always, if there's something you want to hear or want us to talk about, ADHD or other mental health, because I'm just such a mental health nerd and love mental health stuff. Whatever you want to hear, just let us know.
Yeah, shoot us an email or use the form on our website is the best way so that we can stay organized about it.
That's the biggest point.
Yeah.
So it doesn't get thrown into the mix of the other chaos that we have floating around.
Yeah, if you request something on Instagram, I mean, if it gets covered, it's pure happenstance.
It's only because Katie remembered to send me a screenshot and I remembered to put it on a list somewhere.
Right, which, I mean...
Hit or miss.
Yeah, I feel like lottery tickets have a better payout than that.
Yes. Because there's a very high percentage of times where somebody says to me, oh, this, and I quickly respond and then immediately forget about it. So...
Yep.
Sometimes I need a reminder.
What memory shelf, I say?
What? That's another thing I say to Katie a lot. What working memory? Oh my God. So if you want to hear something, let us know. And otherwise, I guess, check in with yourself. Be aware of depressive symptoms.
In yourself and in others.
Yes, and there's no shame in asking for help when you need it.
Yeah.
And be kind to yourself.
Because the bar is ankle high.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in. We'll be here next Thursday with a brand new episode to delight your brain juices. In the meantime, the best way to support us is to leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast streaming platform. You can keep up with us during the week on Instagram and Facebook at The Bar is Ankle High and on Twitter at Ankle High Pod. If you want even more ankle high hot takes in your life and have a few dollars to spare, consider joining our Patreon at patreon.com/thebarisAnkleHigh. We post bonus episodes there full of our karaoke attempts, Am I the Asshole discussions, and wondering how we even managed to survive this long. Patreon subscribers also get exclusive access to our secret Patreon-only Facebook group and get added to our close friends list on Instagram. Until next week, remember to be kind to yourself because the bar is ankle high.